Thank you for being a member of Invest Club. As part of our continuing education, please enjoy this replay of our recent speaker.
Peter Fortunato is one of the greatest real estate minds today. All right? Yes, he is, right? There is no one better at structuring transactions than him. And Peter has inspired countless others to use your brain. Your brain's not just your money. Okay? Peter truly believes if you can't do it one way, you can do it another. So, a little history on Peter. Upon graduating from high school in 1965, Peter went right into the real estate business. His motivation was his desire to be self-employed until he could afford to be unemployed.
Nice.
Pretty smart, huh? By 1975, he achieved that. So what I love about Peter is that he's a libertarian and he's a capitalist. All right? He believes in creating real estate deals you can be proud of, and that a successful investor's most important tools are imagination, curiosity, fearlessness, persistence, and the willingness to meet head-to-head, toe-to-toe with sellers. All right? So today, Peter continues to teach and attends real estate clubs regularly. And he's respected for his clear and patient explanations of complicated investment concepts and transactions. He's been building, structuring, manipulating, and managing investment transactions and portfolios for over 52 years now. So do you think you can learn from someone with that much experience? Yes, absolutely. And he's also the author of one of my favorite questions that I like to ask sellers, warriors, you guys know this. Why would anyone want to sell a nice house like this? It's one of the best questions you can ask when you're right in front of a seller. So without further ado, I'm so honored to have him here once again at Invest Club. Please help me give a warm Invest Club welcome to Peter Fortunato. Here, you can talk, and then I know we're going to set this up for you too.
All right. Okay, well, as she said, my name is Pete Fortunato, and before I was in real estate, I was in high school. Now, that explains a part of what my topic is. Anybody here remember getting out of high school?
Yes.
How many dollars did you have?
None.
So, if you made the mistake of paying attention to the teachers who were in your high school, and saved your money and got a job, you're never going to get out. Remember, a job is a trap. And when you work for yourself or for someone else, and you earn your livelihood by your sweat, your labor, and your time, you are the most highly taxed of Americans. Because you not only got ordinary income tax, what else do you have? Self-employment, Social Security. So there's an additional tax. So what should you be doing? Working from the very get-go to escape the wage slave that public government schools direct you into. You need to get some assets. I took an Uber ride back to my house from my son's house. I dropped the van off before I came out here. And the young guy who was driving the Uber was telling me he and his wife have a little boy, and he's working 2 jobs so his wife can be home, and he hopes to get a better job. Well, that was not the right thing to say to me. And so we spent a very long time driving those 12 miles, as I explained. You don't want another job. You want some assets. Because capitalism works. But in order to get enough capital to provide your lifestyle, people who recognize the possibility of having an asset-funded life. Make the mistake of saving up. I'm just about to be 72 years old. And if I had been saving up, how many houses would I have today? Almost one. So, when I got out of high school and my goal was to be unemployed, that meant getting enough assets so my entire life was funded by the assets and I could do whatever I pleased. So once you realize that that is possible, you can then go and get those assets. So, got a couple of things. First of all, recognize most Americans do not know what capitalism is. Have you ever heard a newscaster or a politician talk about increasing taxes? No one here? Well, in fact, in Florida, where I come from, they mention that on occasion. When they talk about increasing taxes, who do they say should be the subject of the tax?
The rich.
The wealthy, the rich. And then who do they tax? No, the high-income people. See, the wage slaves get taxed. They don't recognize that wealth is not a high-paying job. That job is still a trap. Wealth is assets funding your lifestyle so you can do whatever you please. So, when you start, and if you're lucky and avoided college, you start with a net worth of 0. If you make the mistake of doing 5, 6, 8, 10, 12 years of college, you start $500,000 below 0. That's harder. So, once you recognize that getting those assets is paramount, once you dream the dream that I can get enough assets to fund my lifestyle and enjoy the income those assets generate, which is less taxable, so therefore less wealth provides more income than labor does. So once you have that dream, then what can you do?
Anything you want.
Then you can set a goal. See, without a dream, you never think to set the goal. In 1974, I built a house. Very traumatic time for me. 1974, I had 22 rentals. What was significant about this house was I was going to go and live in it with my wife, which meant what? I had to make the payments. I never had that before. My 22 rentals were all paid for by whom?
Renters.
Renters. See, that's the key part of it. The tenants who provide the income to buy the properties for you. My 9-year-old grandson said to me, "Grampy, what do you do anyway?" I said, "I acquire nice houses in nice neighborhoods, which I enable nice people to live in and pay for me." And he said, "That sounds like a good idea." I said, "It is, and that's all the education you need." But when you realize that having the assets can set you free to do whatever you want, because we're all different people, we all want and enjoy different things. Someone might want the free time to go dance, to travel, to play sports, to watch sports, whatever it is. We all have different goals. That's why commerce happens, because people have different things that they like. But back to 1974, I'm building that house. I paid Mr. and Mrs. Silver $11,000 to buy an 18,000 square foot lot, 2 blocks from the beach and 2 blocks from downtown on the North Shore of Boston. And what do all my friends think?
You're crazy.
Poor Pete, he's out $11,000. And then what do? I bought some plans. And then what did I do? I paid Dave Sabatini to put in a foundation. And I was out yet more money. And then I went to a place called Diamond International, think Home Depot, and bought the materials. And I was out even more money. And then I paid a contractor to frame the building. Then I landscaped the building. And all my friends were seeing all this money going out. And in the end, I was $39,000 poorer to start 1975. What didn't they recognize? What had I done? I converted the dollars into a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house on the North Shore of Boston. We still have that house.
That's where on the North Shore?
Beverly? Oh, like that, good. All right, well, in any case, what was important was my friends who knew that I had a focus and knew that I had a goal really felt bad watching me, quote, spend that money. They didn't recognize that converting dollars that buy ever less and earn ever less to assets which grow or at the very least maintain their value is a way to get free. In my life, my friends, now 70 years old like me, who are financially free, are free with 5 to 15 houses. Not 100 houses. In my market, where I live, it cost me $4,000 a month to live. It cost me, I was hoping and praying to get to $12,000 a year in 1966. Why? What's happened?
Inflation.
Inflation. What's inflation? The devaluation of the currency. So think, 1965, I went into real estate business as an agent so I could earn money without having to invest in inventory. Think how purposeful that was for an 18-year-old. Say, I can have a business so I can earn some money, so I can pay for my lifestyle until I get enough assets. What would be a business where I could talk to people about real estate? Well, gee, being a real estate agent. See how I figured that right out? And I earned $4,000 that first year. And I dreamt of getting to $12,000. And in 1965, what did a first-class mailing cost? 5 cents. So let's assume that there's anybody in this room who might be old enough to have known me then. Oh, Jack Fullerton. So I met Jack back in '65. And I said, Jack, I'd like you to lend me $1, because I'm going into real estate and I'm going to send some letters out and let people know I'm in real estate. And so Jack was foolish enough to lend me $1. And now I just had dinner with him. I said, oh, Jack, I owe you $1. And so I paid him back.
No interest.
What just happened? I borrowed $1. I repaid $1. Doesn't that sound like a nice even swap?
About 20 stamps back.
What happened was he gave me 20 first-class mailings. And I just gave him back what?
2.
Less than 2. That's what happens to people who keep dollars. So you need to get invested. Now, how do you invest if you don't have any investable capital? That's where I was when I got out of high school. So what could I invest? Time, energy, What else?
Other people's money?
Other people's money. Other people's money is not a good way to do it. Because other people's money is the most dangerous way to do it.
Your creativity?
Other people's capital, other people's credit. See, I won't go to a bank, but that won't keep me from sending you to the bank. See, now, what did I just say? Remember, I'm 18 years old. I think I'm going to be a successful realtor. What does the public see?
An 18-year-old.
18 years old, just out of high school. Looks like he's 14.
No experience.
No experience. Where do I live?
At home.
At home with my mom and dad. How do I show somebody real estate?
On your bike.
I borrow my mom and dad's car. So now, I want to go down and see people at the bank and borrow some money because I want to invest in real estate. In Beverly, the small town where I grew up, they wouldn't have thrown me out, but they also wouldn't have lent me money. Everybody see that?
Yeah.
So, what was a way that I could get some real estate?
Creative financing.
What's creative? If you even mention creative financing, what have you just done?
Creating a question.
Frightened the life out of the people across the table from you. So what do? You say, in the event that I could arrange for you to have this instead of that, is there any reason why you wouldn't rather have this? That's why we have the T-bars. Because why do people do business? Why do people do business? You need to know this because if you're out there trying to get some assets, people do business, why?
Make money.
No, not to make money. No one in this world wants money. That's the one thing we know. That's an absolute. If I gave you money, any number you want, delivered it by forklift to your house, all this dirty green paper, and dumped it in your living room, and said, here, you've got it now. You can't ever use it. You just have it. Does anybody want it?
No.
Why? Unless you run out of tissue paper, it's got no utility. Now, if somebody gave you something else, that something else is the key. What's the something else? Have you ever known anybody to sell a house?
Yes.
All right? And they got money, most likely, right?
Right.
What do they do with the money? Bought something else. And it's that step from something they wanted less to something they wanted more. People act to eliminate a lack, a shortage, something they feel. And so it's your job to ask that question. Why would you sell a nice house like this? What's going on in your life? You need to care. And in caring and talking to people, face to face, which is the way you do it. Because face to face, what do you get? Real information. If you send me a text saying, I'll give you $500,000 for your house, and I text you back, no. What happens next? If you ask me that question, I'm sitting here, and Mel Allen makes me an offer, and I say no, what does he see? What information does he get besides the fact I said no? Was I laughing at him? Was I angry with him? Did I start to cry? Are those all different no's?
Yes.
And what does he then get to do? Say, why? I really like your house. And what do we do then? I might actually tell him, well, no, I need the money. Well, nobody needs the money. What are you going to do with the money? Oh, I'm going to buy another house. Have you ever heard anybody say that?
Yeah.
Two of you? Really? If you knock more doors, you'd have more than two people say that. So now, what is a way that you could get somebody who wanted a replacement house to make a deal with you? Find a replacement house. So I could find a replacement if I had a spare house, which I did when I was 18, by the way. I could trade them a house, right? Right now, what else could I do? If I said to him, listen, you're one of America's blessed people. You're an employed person who can get what kind of financing today? Pretty good institutional? What kind of rates might a person get who's buying a house?
4%.
4 or 5%, 30 years? No, and don't let me put numbers in your, okay? So 4.5%. Why did I pick that number? Because it's easy number, okay? 4.5% on a $100,000 loan is $500 a month, so you can multiply by as many hundreds of thousands as it takes in California to buy a house. So now, what can they do? They can go get a loan at 4.5%, whatever the rate is, to buy that next house, is that correct? What can I do? I can't give them the $500,000 they need to buy their house. Everybody recognizes when I was 18, I was a little light. But what could I do?
Create a note.
I could promise to make the payments for them. I'd say, listen, I'll buy your house, and I'll make payments at 4.5% for 30 years. Everybody see that? And so remember, write this one down. A currency, a good currency that we all can use is a promise. A promise. I promise to pay. And so when I say to you, you go buy your house, between us we'll somehow scrounge up a down payment, or we'll go to the bridge loan guys who'll make a bridge loan for you so you can get your down payment and buy that next house. Have you ever heard of a bridge loan? I don't want to pay attention here. At the back table, anyway. So now you get their next house. We've now solved the problem of the next house. Now I will tell you, I have never closed that sort of deal at the hypothetical level. When have I been able to close that sort of deal? When they found that next house and they don't want to lose it, and their house hasn't sold yet. See, so you can talk about it up front, but when their house, that house they want, is on the line, you can make that kind of a deal. Now recognize, your job is to share your desires with other people and recruit allies. I can't stress how important that is to you people. If you're getting started in real estate, after you make sure everybody you love knows that capitalism works, so that they're not left behind when something happens to you, so they can get some assets, so they can one day be free. Your job is to recruit allies. Say, listen, I want to get a house. I want to get several houses. When you hear about a house, when you talk to someone who has an excess house, will you please let me know? Because recognize, if you keep what you want a secret, are the chances enhanced or lessened that you're ever going to find it?
Lesson.
Lesson. When I was a real estate agent, it totally blew me away. I'm 19. You'd think I would not know more about business than the 40 and 50-year-old people I was negotiating with. But they'd call me and say, I want my house sold, I've got a job in Illinois. Okay, so what would I say? I'll put a sign out, I'll go knock on neighbors' doors. Why? To tell them, I got a house for sale in your neighborhood, do you know someone? And I get people that say, oh no, we don't want the neighbors to know. Uh-huh. So then I'll put it in multiple listing. Oh no! I said, well, how exactly are we going to keep this a secret and get it sold? And so that's true. That's not just real estate. That's all business. You have to recruit allies and ask for help. But you can make deals face to face with people if you find out what's going on. Now, the other thing to remember, do we have a picture of the house? We don't.
Yes.
You do? Oh, yeah, we do. You gave me the, oh, you took it away. Never mind.
I have it though.
I had a really nice picture up here for you guys with Bill Stoller. There's a whole lot of moving parts in every house. And each of those parts is something you can distribute to different people. And so, it's possible by structuring to let people have the income, to let people have the use, to let, that's good, thanks Bill. And so, to let people have the tax benefits. Now, when you look at that, if you were dealing with somebody and you weren't going to go to a bank, or like when I was 18, is there anybody that I might know? And remember, when I started, the income tax rate was 70%. And they hadn't passed the 1986 Tax Act yet, so income was income and expenses were expenses. There wasn't the passive and the portfolio and the ordinary. And so what was happening is people with high income jobs got taxed 70% on that. So if they bought a house as an investment, or they bought investment property, what could they do? Everybody see the different blocks?
And they could take deductions.
See the tax benefits? What are the tax benefits in an investment property?
Mortgage.
Mortgage production.
No, anything you gotta write a check for is not a benefit. Tax benefits. Depreciation. Do you have to write a check for the depreciation?
No.
No, but you still get to write it off. So back then, in those days, we'd find people with very high incomes. And high income then was 60 grand. Remember, I was aspiring to 12. And so they get themselves in a position where they were paying, or they were threatened with having to pay 40, 50, 60% income tax. If that property threw off $5,000 in expense, what did that save them? $5,000 times a 60% rate. $3,000. Did that cost me anything?
No.
See, you have to learn that kind of thing, because when I was taking tax avoidance and tax deferral classes, when I was earning $4 grand, it wasn't to shelter my $4 grand. It was to do what? Help someone else avoid paying taxes on $100,000. Using a 1031 exchange to defer the tax. When I could put that deal together, how was I rewarded?
Commission and
With a
sale.
commission or with a chance to buy a house? Now, I say to that guy who's in a high tax bracket, I can get you this house and there's going to be no profit in it, because who wants profit? Who are your upcoming speakers?
Flippers.
Flippers. Business people want profit. They'll buy a house and flip it and make a profit. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Buy low, sell high. Right? But what's an investor want? Cash flow, income, tax benefits. Those go to the investors who hold property for growth and for cash flow. So for example, I know you guys won't think these numbers make sense because of where you live, but in Florida, when I've got a house that cash flows $100 a month, and I brought it to a meeting and said, would anybody here like to buy my house and pay me $10,000 for the equity? There are people there who would offer me 10 grand cash for my equity. Now, if I took the 10,000, what is that showing? Who am I? I'm that flipper. I put it under contract, flipped it for
For a profit.
$10,000 for a profit. But if I'm an investor, what am I going to do? I'm going to hold it and enjoy the cash flow and a little bit of tax benefit, but recognize when I have $4,000 in total income, now plus the rent, it still was not a significant number for me. But do I know anybody in town who might be in a higher tax bracket than me?
Yeah.
I'm at $4,000 a year, guys. Is there anybody in my town that's in a higher? Yes. Like, every single person in town is higher than me, or they were still in school. So now, what does that mean? I can go to those people and say, listen, you can get this property. And when you get it, you can go down to the bank because you're making good money. You're established in town. You can just pay cash. You don't have to do anything smart. Use cash. Where would he get the cash? He'd borrow it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when he bought the house, is he going to want the growth in value in that house?
I think so.
Probably. Is he going to want the cash flow from the house?
Yeah.
He's in the 70% bracket. Anybody think he needs more income?
No.
Is he going to want the amortization of the debt? Also taxable. So is that debt pay down, that's taxable, it's costing him tax dollars. Is he going to want to use the house?
No.
No. Is he going to want the tax benefits?
Yes.
Yes. Is he going to want the thrill of management? No. Absolutely not. So what did I get? I got the thrill of management, some of the income, perhaps some of the growth, none of the tax benefits. See, that was structured to distribute those benefits to people that they had great value in those benefits. And that's what you can do when you talk to people and sit down face to face with people. Warren Harding taught us, opportunities are born of uncomfortable circumstances. Opportunities are born of uncomfortable circumstances. Now, I got out of high school. I had dreamed the dream. I knew that capitalism would fund my life. How did I learn about this?
Read books?
Read a book. Anybody read Horatio Alger stories?
No.
You gotta go find those books. Horatio Alger stories are stories of young people getting started who find a mentor who helps them get started. And there's stories of entrepreneurs and of capitalists and people who are successful who are happy to share. Gary Johnston said, you said, Irish, you said he was here in January?
Yeah, January.
Gary's a terrific teacher, but he talks about investing as a team sport. Did anybody hear him say that?
Yes.
Well, recognize wealth building and portfolio building is much more a team sport than the individual deals. That's why you're recruiting allies. That's why you're doing business all the time. That's why it's so important that you want starters in the room who are just beginning the journey. Journey to where? To having enough capital so that they can fund their lifestyle entirely with their assets. And then from starters, they grow into estate builders. They've got some properties, but they're not there yet. And then ultimately, an ender is someone, ender does not mean you're about to die. Ender means you've ended the dream, you've got enough property to take care of you forever. All of those people work together. When I got started, what did I bring as a starter with very few, with no assets, in my dad's car that I borrowed? What did I bring to the deal? Time, energy, and optimism. So I'd be the manager. I'd find and structure the deal. And who did I do it for? The estate builders and the enders. And what happened? When I was 27, I was invited to meetings of guys who were 50, who were movers and shakers in real estate in our community. Why? I approached them. I came to them with a deal. When they came in for a meeting, down at the city hall, they wanted a variance to add an apartment. They do that kind of nonsense around here too.
Yeah.
Bunch of bureaucrats decide whether you should have any more housing, and then they bitch about the fact that we got a shortage of housing after you turn them down. So I would go to those meetings, and the old guys, in their late 40s, they'd show up and they'd be asking, can I get a new unit, and what would I be doing? I'm saying, I hope you people will honor their request and get one more housing unit in our city. And it was unusual to see me there. And when I got a chance to buy a note, which happened once in a while, there's a note that can be bought for 60 cents on the dollar that's owed by a school teacher. Second mortgage. And there's a note that there's no discount in whatsoever. It'll be sold at par, but it's owed by a guy who's got 20 properties in town. Which one of those notes did I want to acquire?
Par.
I got both answers from you guys.
20 properties, because then you get to know that guy.
20 person, I want to get to know that guy. What do I do when I end up owning his note?
You get to buy him.
Contact him every month to give him money,
I contact him.
or get money.
Yeah, man, it's very nice to have them. Instead of me sending them letters, let them send me letters with checks. It was great. But what else would I do? I was in my early 20s. What did I want to do?
Get more property.
I didn't have enough. Believe it or not, I didn't have enough right away to live on my assets. I needed to do what? Grow my net worth. So what would I do? I'd call someone that I had a second mortgage, and Bill owed me $30 a month on that second mortgage. And that second mortgage was a $5,000 second on a property that was worth $50,000. And what would I say when I talked to him?
Can I buy the property from you?
I'll use the note as a down payment. I'd like to buy the property from you. And he said, well, I'd really like to keep it. So what would I say?
Why?
Isn't that interesting? So would I. So what would I say? I'll forgive the debt if you'll give me a remainder interest in the house. At the end of your life, I'll get the house. And they'd laugh at me. And they'd say, well, no, I don't want to do that. I'd say, well, I'll forgive the debt for an option to buy the house. I'll forgive the debt for an option to buy a different house you like less. Because these guys had assets. And I needed to recruit allies and get in the game, not wait on the sidelines hoping to get in the game. So, I believe, I dreamed the dream, I drank the Kool-Aid, and so I set a goal. I said, I'm going to have enough assets to fund my lifestyle. Now I'm there. Only took 54 years. For me to have enjoyed $4,000 a month, I've got houses that rent for $13.50 a month. For $13.50 a month. I got houses that rent for $1,400 to make my math easy. All right, $1,400 a month. I get to keep $700 every month for that free and clear house. How come I don't get to keep $1,400? Taxes, insurance, supplies, cleaning, advertising. There's a lot of expenses. Look at your Schedule E someday. So even though it's $1,400 a month, I get to keep half. So that's $700. How much am I going to need to live?
4,000.
4,000. What's 4,000 divided by 700?
5.8.
6 houses. Or 5.8. 6 houses. Right? Now, when I did a presentation for Jackie Lang on the radio, on whatever the heck, on a computer, but I think it sounds like a radio to me. I talked about the 10 houses. That was what we all grew up learning, to get 10 houses. When I got done, I hung up the phone and Jack Fortune called me from California. I'm in Florida. And said, Pete, you sound like an old man talking about 10 houses. Now you need 10 houses to fund your lifestyle. and 2 or 3 extra ones for health issues. And that's okay, see, you can do that. You can pick the number, but it's an achievable number. It's an achievable number. We had a friend named Millard Tatum, and Millard had 10 houses, 10 great houses. And Jack Miller and I would see him regularly, the Tampa guy, and say, Millard, you're so good at this, get some more houses. And he said, no, more houses mean more work. I'm not doing this, I'm doing this for freedom, not for work. He said, I've got 2 houses that pay for our home. I've got 1 house that pays for Connie's car. I've got 1 house that pays for my car. I've got 1 house that pays for utilities. I've got 1 house that pays for food. I've got 1 house that pays for vacations. And 10 houses. If I get an 11th house, it comes with more responsibility and no benefits. And so he wouldn't get any more houses. He's done. So one day, Jack and I are at the Village Inn after an exchange meeting, and Millard comes over and says, you gotta see the new house I got up by Egypt Lake. Jack says, wait a minute. You just told us the one. And he said, no, Jack, that was a couple of years ago. Now, I'm too old to do the lawn. This house pays for lawn care. And so you can get very specific. But the fact is you do things on purpose. Now, as an investor, you're not that businessman who comes up with a technique that you repeat cookie cutter over and over and over. Because where's the opportunity coming from? The answer to the question, why would you sell a nice house like this? Something's going on in their life, and it's different in every life. And so what the answer is for them is different for every person. And so our cookie cutter may work fine as a business. I'm going to buy it for 50 cents on the dollar, and I'm not going to get a lot, but I'm going to do the same and repeat it over and over and over. That's my business. What's the problem with that? It's a business. One day you may not want to do that anymore. The people who've been flippers, I mean, I know a lot of them are very successful. I have one guy who's doing 100 houses a year. He is good at this. But at the end of the year, what's he done? What's he done?
Made money, he's got to pay tax.
He's made a whole bunch of money. He's paid a whole bunch of taxes. And guess how much money he's got left?
Not that much.
None, because what happens to money?
It's
Spend it.
It disappeared. It's magic. That's why they call it liquidity. Did anybody ever take some ice, some water, put it in the freezer, turns into ice? Leave it in the investment, the freezer, you're okay. Take it out, put it in your pocket, see how long it's That's what liquidity is describing for you. Money disappears. And so it's got to be invested. When you talk to people, my first house after 200 offers, 200 written contracts, 2 years, no acceptances, no closings. The first house I closed on. Why did it happen? I talked to the guy that owned Albert, who owned the house, and said, what? No, I didn't know he was going to sell. I talked to him months. I never thought he'd sell. It's a great house. What did I say to you guys? How do you get started? Recruit allies. I talked to people and said, I want to be unemployed. In order to be unemployed and have a quality of life I approve of, it means I have to have some assets. I'm looking to get some. Will you help? If you know anybody, if you run into anybody who's got an excess house. And so I had said that to him. What happened in his life?
Sell all of a sudden, for some reason.
He's living in Beverly, Massachusetts, and he got a job opportunity in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. That job opportunity, what did that do for me? Created me, for me, big opportunity. And so what happened is, Albert suddenly went from having a property he liked, it was a triplex. It went from being a nice home with some income to being what? An anchor standing between him and the move 1,400 miles away to Fort Lauderdale, where that job opportunity awaited. And it was a big step forward in his career field. So he called me. And he said, Pete, talk to me about wanting to buy a house. We're going to have to move. And I said, but Albert, that's a great house. Why would you sell that house? Job opportunity, I'm going to make 50% more money, which back then was like $18,000. And I've got to take this opportunity. I've got to get out of here. So now, he had a $24,000 FHA loan on his house. Why was that significant in the 1960s?
Because it was assumable.
No drawing sales. Why was that important to this 19-year-old kid who thinks he's employed, but is generally regarded as unemployed? Because I'm not going to qualify for a loan anyplace, right?
You don't.
And so he's got a $3,000 second and a $24,000 FHA loan on it. And he needs $3,000 that he's got invested in this house so he can leave and go take that job. And it's going to cost $500 for closing costs. Remember, I'm talking 1967. So, I've been doing this for 2 years now. Every time I've tried to invest, I've been turned down. So I'm loaded. I've got $1,900 in cash. Hey, that was pretty good. Don't laugh. So I had $1,900. So now, what does he need to close? What has he told me he'd take? $3,000 plus. I got to pay the closing cost for him. So $3,500. So now, how do you approach that person?
Create a note.
Exactly. I said, listen, Albert, I've got $1,900. I'll pay the $500 closing costs. I'll give you the $1,600 that I have. And I promise, remember I said promise is currency? I promise I'll give you the other $1,600 as fast as I can get it. Why did I offer that to him first? He's the one who's got the problem. He wants to get rid of the house. See, he should be the seller should be the first one that you talk to when you need to finance a property. So, I said to him, I'll make that deal. I'll close as soon as you want. You can hit the road. I'll be there to wave as you drive away. And what do you think he said?
Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely not. So now, I got a house with a first on it and a second on it, and I don't qualify for a loan, and I'm unemployed. What did I do? I negotiated the single most creative, best note that I've ever negotiated in my whole life at the age of 19. I went to my mom and dad, and I borrowed the other $1,600 with no interest, no payments, no due date, and no note. Is that a good deal or what? And I used that money with my money and bought my first property. Now, that happened why? Because Albert got a job out of town. See, I got face to face with him, and I talked to him, and I acquired that property. Now, what happened as a result of that? I got my first house, not a good deal?
Yeah.
What else happened?
Credibility?
It's really important to understand, I talk about recruiting allies, what just happened when I did that closing?
Relationship?
I closed it. Was he happy when I bought that house?
Yes.
Yes. Have you ever bought a house from anybody?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right? Where are those people? What are they doing right now? You should know that.
Crime.
You should know that. All right? Have you ever sold a house to somebody?
Yes.
Were they happy that day? Yes. What are they doing? Because those people with whom you've done business, you've shown that you're a person who performs and keeps promises and helps them. Those are allies, and it shocks me that people don't stay in touch, because that makes it ever so much easier. So what happens? I'm making mortgage payments to the Beverly Savings Bank. Remember me, I'm the guy with the unemployed real estate agent, now approaching 20. And I've got 2 loans with the downtown bank, right in the middle of town where I grew up. And what do you think I did? Am I beginning to build a relationship with the bank?
Yeah.
Now, how do I make those payments?
In person.
Rent the house?
But I mean, I didn't have any money.
Renters.
Renters. So my 3 tenants, were those important in my life?
Yeah.
You betcha. Without those tenants, I couldn't afford that house, right? The house had taxes, insurance, remember all those expenses? I couldn't pay for my own expenses. I was living with my mom and dad. People said, now you got a triplex, you're gonna move in? I said, hell no, I can't afford that. Who'd cook for me? And so, I rented the house. And you know what? Those people who were my renters, what have they done? They've referred people to me that I've done business with. Albert, who sold the house when he went to Florida, he went to Florida. But guess what? He had a large family in town. I did business with 2 of his uncles. What else happened? I made payments to the Beverly Savings Bank. And the payments to the Beverly Savings Bank in less than 3 years paid off the $3,000 home improvement loan. It was $100 a month for 3 years. So who paid that loan off?
Renters.
The tenants. But guess who got the letter with the paid note when it was paid off? I got a letter from the Beverly Savings Bank when I was only 22 years old saying, "Dear preferred customer." I was a preferred customer. And they sent me back the note Mark paid. And they said, "Congratulations on your great credit. And if you ever need any money for a good deal on a boat or a car, come in and see us." And so what did I do when I got that letter? I hung it on the wall in my office. And guess what? A year and a half later, I was talking to a gentleman whose son was going to college. And he was going to sell a property to me. And why would he want to sell a property to me? He was an old timer in the real estate in my community. He admired the 25-year-old who'd been at the variance hearings and talking in behalf of the older guys. And do you know people who make better deals with people they like than people they don't? And guess what he told me? This property is worth about 25 grand. I'll sell it to you for 20 grand cash. I was only 20,000 light, but aside from that, I was all over that deal. So I'm thinking, how can I make this work? And what do I notice? I had a Dear Preferred Customer letter on my wall.
You study the car?
I took the Dear Preferred Customer letter off the wall, went to the Beverly Savings Bank, went in, presented myself to Mrs. Butterworth, the Vice President, said, "Mrs. Butterworth, you do remember I went to school with your son, right?" "Yeah." "Here I am, your preferred customer. I really don't want a boat or a car. But I get a chance to buy this house worth 25 grand for 20 grand. I'm only 20 grand light. Would your bank consider lending me $20,000? They lent me $20,000 over 25 years. So guess what I did? Bought another house. What did I do with it? Rented it. And so what happened is, the first few years, how much money do you think it made? A little benefits. So it's made no money. I have no intention of selling it. So growth is not relevant to me. I got tax shelter, but how much money? I'm up to almost $11,000 a year now in income. So do you think tax shelter was a big deal?
No.
Why did I buy this place? 5 years went by, and all of a sudden, I noticed that the house was paying me $150 a month. And remember the house on Thorndike Street, my first house? When that second mortgage got paid off, it was paying me $100 a month. So now you look, 100 plus 150, that's $3,000 a year. And remember me, I'd only been earning $4,000 just a couple of years earlier. So why is $3,000 in rent better than $4,000 in earned income? No self-employment tax, right? More freedom to do what I want. And the depreciation meant the $3,000 in cash flow wasn't taxed, only $1,000 was, because the depreciation sheltered the rest of it. So it wasn't a lot better way to have the income coming in. And so that's the deal that I made, and that's the first time I recognized having that $3,000 come in like year 5. That was a significant portion of my income. 20% of my income came from the property. And after 10 years, at age 28, 100% of my income was provided by my rents. Now, there was no extra there, but it paid the bill, so I was free to do what I wanted. But I didn't wait to get the property. So then, in 1982, I moved to Florida. Why would anybody move from Massachusetts to Florida? It had nothing to do with the weather.
Income tax.
It had a lot to do with the socialists in Massachusetts, because I had kids. I didn't want them hanging around with people. What was more important than that?
To meet the guy.
A free house. They gave me a free house. Moving to Florida and eliminating the state income tax in Massachusetts. The tax savings was the equivalent of my principal, interest, taxes, insurance, pool service, lawn service, and utilities. Now I think Gene and me and 4 little kids suddenly have a 3-2 house with an office, with a garage, with a pool in Florida, and we're paying for that with the taxes that the state of Massachusetts used to steal from us. Very significant change for us. Now, let's talk about the benefits in exchanging. Bill and I were talking about this story today, and one of the interesting things that happened to me is I drove a station wagon that I borrowed to Florida with my family when I moved there in '82. And when I got there, I ran to Miller. Miller's the guy with the 10 houses. And then you get the 11th one because you're lawn care. And Millard says, Pete, I noticed in the back of that station wagon, you've got a black and white battery-operated television and radio. I said, yeah, I sure do. He said, I've always wanted one of those. I said, really? How bad exactly? He said, well, you know, if I would paint the entire interior of your house, would you give me that black and white battery-operated radio TV? What do you think I did?
Like the color?
He gave me to you. What do you think happened?
You painted your house.
Monday, he shows up at my house, and he starts to paint. And he paints a little bit. And he says, you know, Pete, I've been thinking about this deal. And if I had this opportunity, how would you structure this? And we brainstormed that deal, and he went back to painting, and 15 minutes later, he says, you know, Pete, I've been thinking about this structure. I got this financing, and I bet the constant's kind of high, and I could refinance the house. What do you think of this? It took him 1 month to paint my house. What did he trade for?
Knowledge.
A month of in-house counseling. He stayed in the house. He moved in. See, some of these exchanges, you gotta watch these guys, 'cause they're good. They know what they're after, and you might not perceive it. But I've done 14 deals in the last 4 years that were installment sales. Anybody know what that is? What's an installment sale? You gotta know this, because the ones I'm doing are with people in California. Because they're getting crushed. Because they get stupid people telling them to take the cash. Installment sale is not necessarily seller financing.
But it could be paid.
It's a tax deferral. And what happens is, because I'm 72, I'm bumping into many of my friends who have spouses who are saying what? We're not having any more tenants, are we, honey? Now, when they say that, these are guys who have basis. Ever know what a basis is in the house?
Yes.
A basis of 40, 50 grand, because they've exchanged up over 20, 30, 40 years. So, if they sell a house here, and their basis is $100,000, and they sell it for $1 million, there's a $900,000 capital gain. How much does the state of California steal?
All of it.
Not all of it. 13.3%?
13.3 state.
It's higher than that?
State.
State. State, not federal too. What I was told when I taught here last year, 13.3, and I got nearly swooned at that. Don't tell me higher. So anyway, 13, say 15%, do the math, make the math easy. 15% of $900,000 is how much? 10% of $900,000 is how much? 90 plus 45. All right, 135 grand, gone. Now, is there also going to be a federal tax?
Yes.
15 to 20%. How much is that? Now we're at $300,000 gone. Is there any other tax? Obamacare, 3.8%. So what happens is these damn fools who listen to their mother-in-law and their attorney sell and take the cash. So $1 million after closing costs and after taxes turns into $600,000. Everybody see that? I'm going to show you a real. This happened to me last year on my birthday. It was awful. One of my friends from California came to my house to break my heart last March. She started with me in 1970 as an investor. So in 1970, how much money did she have when she started?
0.
Everybody got that?
Yeah.
All right. So what happened is she started to build and got a little bit and got better and better and better. Lo and behold, 2018, she got a $2 million apartment complex appraised $2 million at 6% cap rate. Everybody know what a cap rate is? Okay, so 6% cap rate.
Explain the cap rate, Pete.
Capitalization rate is the rate of income you'd have if you paid all cash and there was no debt service. So the cap rate is presuming a free and clear property. Now what happens is, if Steve bought it and put 10% down and got 8% financing, what kind of return would he have? Negative. Why? Because he was paying 8% times 90% of his cost, which is 7.2%, but the property's only producing 6. Now, I bought it with 20% down, but I got somebody to finance it at 4.5%. So I get a different yield. So the cap rate is talking about a free and clear property. All right, so that's the deal. So what happens is, she's in her middle 70s. She's got an offer for her property. She's owned the place for 17 years. But she got it from 1970 to 2018. So, what happened?
She has a low basis.
She goes and talks to her financial advisor and her son. What did they both say?
Sell.
Don't exchange, because that's what she's done. She's gone up there by exchange. They said, you don't want to exchange. You don't want more tenants now that you're old, 75. Should have slapped them right there. So she said, what? If I'm not going to exchange, what should I do? What might I do? Installment sale, publication 537, IRS.gov. Very, very important. 14 purchases in the last 4 years for me, for my family. 14 of them. 537. All right, so now here's what happened. They said, if you installment sale, what if the people didn't pay you? That would be a nightmare. So what did they advise her to do? Sell it and take the cash. So what did she do? She sold it and took the cash. Taking the cash meant she had closing costs plus the taxes. Everybody remember the taxes we just talked about? That set her back to $1,200,000. Wow. It set her back a decade. Now, what did she do with the $1.2 million? What did her financial advisor, her son, she put it in the bank in a 2% certificate of deposit. This is not something that happens occasionally. This happens all the time. And if you care about people, would anybody here have paid more than $1.2 million at 2%? What was this place? What's 6% of $2 million? $120,000. That's income. What's 2% of $1.2 million? $24,000. Anybody see? This is bigger. That's not a fake deal. That's real. That's what people do. That's what she did. That's what your neighbors are doing. That's what realtors are telling them to do. That is a sin. In August, it wasn't bad enough I suffered through this. In August, I went to see a friend who back 1,000 years ago when I was a broker, I'd sold some properties for, and I sat down with Marie, and she's telling me she had one rental house. She bought it for $70,000 years ago. She sold it last December, so December of a year plus, so December of 17. She sold it for $200,000. The $200,000, the house was rented for $1,400 a month. And why did she sell it? Went vacant. Went vacant. She had a good tenant for years. She always had the money come every month. She's very happy. Tenant moved out. The house is vacant. what did people say? Oh, now it's vacant, you can sell. She sold it for $200,000 cash. She net $162,000. What did she do with it?
Put it in the bank.
Put it in the bank. August, last August.
Push it up, Pete. All the way up.
$13.50 in interest. If she kept that, what would she have?
1680.
$700 a month
Yep.
or more in interest income, rental income. That's important that people are making these mistakes. That's why Americans are financial failures. That's why Americans reach age 65 and they have to keep working. Or they have to go on the dole. Or they have to take from their children and grandchildren to subsidize their lifestyle. That's not a future you want. And these kind of mistakes are happening all around you. So, last year, my friend Jerry had a house out of state. Low basis. Why did I know he had a low basis?
He told you.
He started back when I started, and what did I tell him when he told me he's thinking of selling? Call your account, find out what the basis is. His basis is $12,000. The tenant in the house wants to buy it. He wants to sell it. Why does he want to sell it? It's out of state. He's got some nice rental houses near him in Florida. So what did I say? I said, I'll buy the house from you for $100,000, no money down, 5% interest, good security. And how much tax would they pay if they did installment sales with no money down?
Just whatever he made that.
The income, the payments, if they were all interest, would be interest just like interest in the bank, ordinary income. They'd pay no capital gain aside from some recaptured depreciation. Right? So, what happened with that was I paid $100,000, 5%, 30 years. What did I give him as collateral? No. I don't want the damn house. House is out of state. What do I want? The money. The money. So what happened is I gave him a $100,000 note, installment sale note. You got it? $535 a month. That's a promise I gave. They gave me a deed to the house. I gave them a mortgage on a house in Florida that's 5 miles from where they live. So if I get hit by a truck, would you rather have your collateral be in the same town where you live or be 10 states away? See, so they took a mortgage on a house in Florida. So the house I got is what? Free and clear. So what did I do? Sold it to the tenant. How much did I pay for it? $100. How much did I sell it for? $100. Any profit? No. Why did I do that deal? Because $100,000 at 5% for 30 years owed to a human being is much safer than to an institution. What did I do with the $100,000 in cash that I got? Is it taxable for me?
No.
$100,000, having $100,000 hit the kitchen table without any taxes, is that good?
Yeah.
Better than the alternative. So now, what did I do with $100,000? Paid off an 8% subject to mortgage and bought another house and renovated 2 of my houses that need roofs and windows. Jack, we have no Gibraltar Court has a brand new roof. But, yep.
I'm kind of confused. Did the tenant pay you cash?
Tenant paid me cash.
And then you use a different installment note to give us?
No, I gave an installment note to Jerry.
Diagram it.
please.
Drop it.
It's a good time to have teaching with Bill this weekend. Okay, everybody got that?
Yep.
All right. I gave what?
No.
A promise, which happened to be a note. And that promise was what? $100,000. 5%, 30 years. Everybody see that?
Yes.
And I got a deed. Right?
Right.
Now, the seller of the house over here did the mirror image of this deal. They gave a deed and got the promise. So now, what does the seller want? He knows me, believes I'll pay him. We have a good rapport. That's a big part of making him feel comfortable. What does he want? If I made a promise to pay you,
Wants money.
I'm probably going to keep my word. But what happens if I go out here and get run over by a car?
You want
You need
security.
to have some security, collateral, a first mortgage, a lien on something. So in this case, I've got the deed. I didn't put a note on this. I didn't put a mortgage on this. I put a deed of trust on another house, which happened to be closer to where they live. So I put a first deed of trust on another house. See the other? To secure this note. Since this note's secured on this house, what's the status of this deed? Free and clear. So what did I then do? I gave the deed
Raise it.
and I got everybody see that?
Yep.
What did I do with the cash?
Reinvest it.
Remember this house I gave him a first mortgage on? I bought that house subject to. Everybody know what subject to means?
No.
Means I bought it with an existing
Mortgage.
debt on it. The debt happened to be to a pretender lender. The worst and most dangerous kind of financing you can have.
Think of America.
So what did I do? I took this cash and I shot this, replacing it with 5% money. Now, it didn't take all that money. I used the rest of the money to buy some other property.
How could you put a first mortgage on that house if there was already a lien on it?
That's the way real estate is done. Did anybody here ever buy a house?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever show up at closing and not have all the money? Where'd you get the money?
Bank. Pretender money.
Probably a lender, right? You went to some lender someplace. They lent you money on a house you didn't own. Contingent on what? You're closing and getting it. They lent you the money. The seller promised to give you what? The house free and clear. At the closing, they took the money you got from your lender and paid off their loan. That's what happened at simultaneous close.
So,
A pretender lender is someone who pretends to lend. See, if I borrow money from you, again, I'm going to deal numbers, I'm more comfortable, $100,000. I say, I'll pay you 5%, you say, fine, and you give me $100,000 in return for my note, promising to pay, and then you say, where's the security? And either I already have something, or I buy something with the money and give you a first. Right, got that? Now, next to you is Tom. Tom doesn't have 100, but he likes to make some money. So he promises to lend me 100. But he doesn't mind fraud. And that's kind of the way the banks are in the United States today. So what happens is, he says, I'll lend you 100 grand. What's the problem?
He doesn't have it.
He doesn't have 100 grand. So what happens? He comes to the closing, and he has me sign a note, right? And a financial statement, income and expenses, all the stuff that lenders ask for. And I give him the note mortgage. What does he do? He sells it. He's creating inventory to sell. He sells 30 minutes. So in any case, so what happens? He sells it to somebody and makes a profit. He's not a lender. He's creating inventory to sell. That's very different. So your danger is, I owe you guys $100,000, and it's a 10% loan, and because I lost my mind, I'm not paying you. Have you ever heard of anything so silly? All right, now, I'm behind 3 months, I'm behind 6 months in payments. Steve comes along and says, I'll buy your house. And he says, I'll buy it subject to the mortgage. So Steve calls you up and says, listen, I'm buying that house at Fortune, I was not paying you one. And I'll bring the loan current if you waive the due on sale clause so I'm not put at risk. What would you say to him?
Yes.
Probably, yeah.
Why?
You're not kidding me.
10%, he wants to bring the payments? You'd say, can I buy you dinner? Right? What happens when you call a pretender lender?
They don't have that dark.
They say, no, you can't do that. Why don't you do a short sale like everybody else? No, the due on sale clause is inviolate. That's nonsense. What is that telling you? It's not their money. See, servicers get paid to provide a service. A service is to foreclose. A service is to short sale. A lender wants his money. And so when you got a real lender, you can take subject, or I can take, I'm comfortable taking subject to with a real lender. I'm comfortable more so if it's an installment sale. Because what happens if they get paid off? The taxes are all due. I'm comfortable if it's a property manager who got burned out by management, sold and carried a note because they were under the illusion that having a note is less trouble than owning a house. So subject to does not mean subject to me. It depends on the quality of the loan. If it's a pretender lender, it's much more dangerous. No.
Thank you. The piece of paper you had before that, when you're sitting down, your description, your friends, over there, you looked at.
Yeah.
So when you sit down with those, because I've had 3 of those in the last 3 months, and they don't get it. They get the money, but they want the cash. When you explain how much they're losing.
Well, but I don't think you need to explain it. I think you can give them, the question is, when you explain to people what terrible shape they're in, that's not rapport building. So I think you can ask questions.
Right.
And let them answer and see. For example, I bought a house for no money down, no interest, no payments, and no due date. What was the yield of the seller? No.
Oh, the money you owe them.
No. They have a house. They don't have any money, they got a house. Are there any vacant houses in California?
Yes.
Couple.
All right. Let's say the vacant house came about because somebody inherited it. Does that ever happen?
Yeah.
All right. You inherited the house. Are there taxes on that house?
Yes.
How much are they?
1.25%.
Come up with it, I don't care.
1.3, 1.25.
10,000? 2,000? 1,000?
$10,000.
$10,000. Okay, $10,000. All right. Has anybody in Florida, in California, ever insured a vacant house? Is it expensive?
Yes.
To insure a vacant house or not?
Yes.
Keyboard.
Oh.
That answers your question.
All right. Is it expensive?
Yeah.
How expensive is it to insure a vacant house in California? I bet it's double what it costs to insure a full house. So
Yeah.
what might that be?
2,000.
All right, $2,000. $2,000, right? Now, do people in California have the utilities on, or do they just let the mold grow in the house?
You let the mold grow.
Some let the mold grow, that's true. But what does it cost to run the utilities in that house? $200, okay? Now, do they mow the lawn, or do they let the mayor's son-in-law mow the lawn for $500 a cut? They mow the lawn, what's that cost?
$40.
$40 a month. All right, so how much money are we at so far? 10,000 plus 2,000 plus 2,000 plus 40 a month. So you're at $15,000 a year. So if I buy the property and give them no money and no payments and no interest, what is their rate of return?
15.
They say
$15,000 a year in expenses they escaped. That's huge for a family. In Florida, where I live, I never find a house that isn't $600 a month in negative cash flow. Even free and clear, never mind if there's debt on it. Those expenses escaped are part of their return. And if you don't show them, if you tell them that, they get upset with you. You can't tell people what awful shape they're in. You have to ask them questions and let them see it. If you can get them to write down, here's where I am presently, and here's where I could be, they'll get it. But remember, the expenses escaped is huge. And no one would rather have $1,000 a month negative cash flow than be relieved of it.
So thinking for that, but I was talking about your birthday friend who came over and sold the $1 million property.
They sold a $2 million house.
Right.
Yep.
So
$2 million apartment.
if you saw her before her accountant and her son told her to sell that property,
Yep.
what would you advise her?
I'd have bought the place from her. Well, the right thing for her to do was what?
Installments.
Keep it. See, she didn't, what they made the mistake, I think, aside from the fact they were Americans, they don't know any better, they think money is important. But what happens is, they thought she had to do something. She didn't. She owned the property for a dozen years. It was cash flow, it was managed. It looked great, it was in good condition. She knew the tenants. She just had to sit tight. But what would I have offered her? Installment sale, $2 million. Why would I offer her $2 million?
Price
The
value.
appraisal she had. Do I need to buy it low?
No.
Why? Because I'm not going to sell it. See, if I'm going to flip it, that's a different story. So what happened is she could have just kept it. But what would I have offered her? I said $2 million. I'll give you lots of additional collateral, so you're safe. 4.5% 30 years. How would I come with 4.5% 30 years? That's a 6% payment.
Yeah.
What's the property generate? 6%. So the property would have paid for itself, amortized itself to zero. And I'd like to add that to my family's holdings. That would have been an offer I would have written. My son owes a $300,000 mortgage that's now 14 years old. The gentleman he owes the mortgage to has a $90,000 prepayment penalty in it for the first 15 years.
Wow.
Why?
He doesn't want to do that.
Because the $300,000 is going to be reduced to $210,000 if he gets paid off. If he gets paid off, the $210,000 goes into the bank and might get 2%. Right? So he doesn't want to be paid off. So how do you prevent payoff? There's a $90,000 prepayment penalty. Why don't I care about the prepayment penalty?
You're not going to do
You're
that.
not selling
I
it.
have no intention of selling it. And if I did sell it, what would I do?
Installment sale.
I'd move the mortgage and take the money. See? A year ago, August, I had a friend call me up and said, I want to buy a house. I'll pay $200,000 at 6%. Can you help me? So what did I do? What did my friend offer? What did he say he'd pay for the house?
200,000 at 6%.
$200,000, 6%, interest only for 10 years. I'm just making it to make the numbers easy here. $200,000. Interest on. Everybody got it? That's what he said he'd pay, right? So what did I do? I went and bought the house, and I bought it for $200,000. I'm not real good at this flipping stuff. And 4%. Everybody know what an all-inclusive deed of trust is?
Yeah.
Wraparound mortgage?
Yep.
What happened is, my friend the buyer paid me 6% times 200,000. How much is that?
$12,000.
$12,000. And I'm paying the seller $8,000. So without making a profit, what's happening? I'm generating $4,000 per year. Now, what's going to happen? Anybody know a mortgage broker?
Yes.
No, not in this one. All right. Are there mortgage brokers who could beat 6% financing on a nice house the person's been living in for a year and a half?
Yes.
Yeah, 4.5.
So if he goes and refinances this, is that better? Same payment, but it's amortizing. You see it?
Yes.
Does that wipe out my deal? No. What would I do if he paid this off with a refi? I'd take the deed of trust on the house, which is on the same house, just a wrap. And I'd do what? I'd walk it over here, put it on a different house. Art's not my strong suit. So I move the deed of trust on a different house, and I take the 200 grand in cash. What would I do when it paid off?
Buy another house.
Buy some other property. I'll pay off some dangerous debt, pay off a balloon note. See, it's all about caring about people, finding out what's going on. When I moved to Florida, the first house I went to look at was for sale at above market price. Can you imagine that? I mean, they were actually asking 120% of retail. It had been on the market for a year. The mortgage on it was $950 a month, BITI. I went and looked at the house. What did I do?
Bought it.
I said, I will lease option the house. What's a lease option? It's all financing in disguise. It's all it is. So I lease option the house. I said, I'll give you $750 a month. What did the realtor say? You're supposed to be smart. The payment is $950. You're offering him $750? How am I supposed to sell that? I said, you might try just explaining it to him. Now, we made this deal. $750 a month. Why did the seller do that?
So they were getting nothing other than before.
They weren't getting nothing. They were getting a negative $950.
Yeah.
And what else were they getting? This was PIT.
Taxes, insurance.
Tax insurance. Remember the utility bill? Remember the lawn? Remember maintenance? Let's just wrap this up and say this is another $200 a month. So that goes up here, doesn't it? So now they're $1150 a month negative. When I give them this, what's their negative cash flow? $200. Because who's going to pay for the utilities? The tenant I put in the house. Who's going to pay for the lawn? The tenant. Who's going to pay for the minor maintenance? Either the tenant or me. For saying, that's the deal. I wasn't able to buy that house. But I was able to lease option that house.
Long term.
5 years. Not as long as I would have liked. And what happened when it was 2005 and I made the deal? What happened in 2010?
House fell apart.
The value fell apart. So all I did was make $300 a month for 5 years. Is that the worst deal you ever do? I didn't get to buy the house. See, remember the pictures of the benefits in the house? There's all kinds of benefits here. And you can take your profit in many, many ways. I spoke to the RIA, the Tampa RIA, in September 3 years ago. And I talked about currencies being whatever it is you have or can get. So every asset you have is not only an asset, but it's a currency. Every good and every service you have or can provide is a currency. So have you ever dealt with somebody who's in business? Oh, 2 of you have. How do you find out what they'll trade for?
Ask them.
You have to ask them.
Say, do you have a budget for your business? What's on their budget? Is there any chance there'd be marketing on the budget?
Yes.
Could you provide them with marketing? Could you trade for marketing? Give them that as a down payment? Any chance there'd be space rent? Could you give them prepaid rent or discounted rent? Any chance there'd be transportation, storage? All those things that are on the budget, that's what they're spending the dollars for. They don't need to get the dollars, they need to get the storage. They need to get the marketing, they need to get the painting. And it's your job to find out what they need. My friend Chet was an old guy, in his 60s. And he and his wife had 3 kids who were launched and gone. And they lived in a 3-bedroom, 3-bath house on a pond. No, they call it a lake in Florida, but you guys would never call it a lake. It's a pond. Almost like the size of this room. And they had 3 bedrooms, 3 baths, with a nice view of 2 ducks in the pond. Once in a while, an alligator comes to this one duck. So they're living in the house. They got a $90,000 mortgage on the house. What's the problem?
They're 60 and they're making payments.
Stairs. They got sucked in and signed a 15-year loan instead of a 30-year. Meaning what? Trapped in higher payments. They got 3 bedrooms and 3 baths, and there's only the 2 of them in the house. So what did I do? I traded them 3 little houses. My littlest, cheapest 2-bedroom, 1-bath houses. I said, Chet, I will give you 3 free and clear, crummy little houses for your really nice house. He said, well, why would I do that? I said, well, I thought you might be more interested in pride of income, pride of cash flow, and I'm more interested in pride of ownership. So what do? He said, I'd love to make that deal, but I got a problem. My house isn't free and clear. So what did I say? Don't worry about it. I had him go, and he got a $25,000 loan on one little rental house. And he got a $25,000 loan on the second rental house. And he got a $40,000 loan on the vacant one that he moved into. What's 25 and 25 and 40? 90. What did he do with the money?
Gave it to you.
Paid off his.
Paid off the institutional loan. He moves into the house, he's got 2 rents. The 2 rents paid principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, all he had for a bill. Instead of $13.95 plus utilities in the big house, he had only the utilities in the little house. And I had a better house. I gave up $2,000 in rent from 3 little houses for $1,200 in rent in one nice house. Why would I do that?
Thanks, Russ.
More value to the house?
I wanted to do what?
Help him.
Have less hassle. 3 tenants in cheaper houses, are they easier or better than one nice house? See, I consolidated, got one better house, all right? Everybody see that? Now, what happened? When we closed, was I happy?
Yes.
Yes. Was Chet and his wife happy?
Yes.
Yes. How long did that last? Almost 3 months.
What?
What happened? She hated living there. So what did they do?
So,
They rented that house and they moved into a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo. He's since passed away, but she's still living. So what happened? The rent back then was $750. Today the rent's probably $1,300 or $1,400. Well, what's happened to the rents in the 3 of those 2-bedroom houses? They've gone up along with it. So what we did is instead of selling the house and becoming a renter, they kept some real estate. They've got some assets to leave to their children. And yeah, she was not happy living there. So we then made the next adjustment. But that's what it's about. So I was over at Tampa-Ria, and I'm talking about all the stuff I talk about all the time, which is anything's a currency, go make a deal, it's up to you, find out what's in it for them, ask why would you sell a nice house like this, and everybody in the room listens politely and pays no attention. So then we get done after the meeting, one of the guys at the meeting says, I get this house for sale. Really? Yeah, it's one of my rental houses. Well, why would you sell a nice house like that? What do you think he said? He said, my daughter is a single mom with 2 kids, and we've had to drive out to bail her out as her car is broken down twice in the last month. We don't want to be worried about that all the time. We want to get her a better car. Everybody understand that? Can you see where that's a real important thing for somebody? So, what do you want to do? He wanted to sell a perfectly good house to get money, to pay taxes, so that he could then take the residual and get a car? Are you kidding me? So what did I do? I said, gee, I got a nice van. I traded him the van for an option to buy his rental house. So he could keep his rental house and enjoy the rent. And I get rid of a car, which is a piece of crap. You know, I can get a car, and what happened to me? I'm on the side of the road at Rocky Point. I got no car to go home in. No one remembers everything I said that night, but they all remember I traded that car in an instant to get myself the growth in a nice house. And no one has forgotten my trading that car and having to beg for a ride home. Now, I can go on like this all day and all night for 54 years. I've done a lot of stuff. But what I'm telling you is, when you knock on a door and you talk to people, when you get a call, and most everything I do today is what? Repeat and referral business. When I made my presentation for Gary Johnston, we looked at 50 years of my life. I've done 71 transactions with 4 families. Wow. Tell me how much easier that is than going out sending 4 billion yellow letters. My brother has a free and clear house in Florida, just around the corner from me. That's a second home for him, because he lives in Massachusetts. And he said there's never a day that he doesn't get a half a dozen or more yellow letters. Free and clear, out-of-state owner, not homesteading, all the triggers. And he said, I'm never going to need to buy scratch paper again as long as I live, because it gets provided to me every day of the week. And so, for me, it's the repeat and the referral business. One of the proudest things that happened to me happened this weekend. My son Michael went to buy a house from an old man. And the old man wouldn't sell. It was his mom's house. It had been left to him. Wouldn't sell the house. He was in his 70s. And he'd been trying to rent it. Now, you've got to see the people who come to the beaches in Florida to live in little wood frame shacks on the water. Like, think Jimmy Buffett. And so what happens is, people come from out of state, they drink themselves blind and then they go back to Michigan, Minnesota, wherever they came from, and they never last any length of time. Everybody got that? Can you imagine anything like that? So this gentleman and his wife have been managing their first rental house in their 70s when they're supposed to be retired. In the 10 years they had owned it, they are now cleaning up after the 16th tenant. Just think how tired you can get of that. So when I went and talked to them with my son, I said, Michael would like to buy this house. Absolutely not, we're not going to sell this house. My mom bought this house and she left it to us, and we've had it for years, and we're going to keep renting it. And so I said, well, how much rent did you bring in? His wife reaches down her pocketbook and she's got a journal. We went through the whole journal with her. Remember I said, ask them to tell you what, I didn't say, boy, I bet the tenants are driving you crazy, aren't they? I just asked the questions, let them relive it. They showed me the 16 vacancies they had. They showed me the income. We added it up. How much income do you think they had in 10 years that they've been managing this rental? $72,000. How much is that a year? 7,200, because I went 12. 600 a month. So what do I say to them? In the event that I can arrange for you to get the same $600 a month you got for the last 10 years, but with never another phone call, with never another cleanup, is there any reason why you would rather the same money with none of the hazards? And so we signed a 10-year lease. And my son was not happy. He said, Dad, I really wanted to get that house, and there should have been a deal there. When I get a 10-year lease, what do I get?
An option to buy.
That's almost, see, that's not an option. There's no option there. But if I'm going to live in it for the next 10 years, how many of you would like to buy it and just have me as a tenant? People want that waterfront house with a beach and a dock and a view of the islands. They want to use it. So there's no one else to sell it to. So lo and behold, 6 years go by. We pay the $600 every month, actually early. 6 years go by, he calls up. We're done. We want to sell the house. I said, well, what did you have in mind? $300,000. Now that's probably $150,000 less than the value of the lot. But I mean, the house is a detriment, not an asset. So, now I'll sell it to Michael for $300,000, and I'll carry the financing because he's never missed a payment all these 6 years. And I said, what? What's changed? Why would you sell this nice place? He said, oh, I want $150,000 cash and I'll finance $150,000. I said, really? He said, why do you want $150,000 cash? He said, I've got an opportunity in the stock market. I said, oh, did you come to the right place? I'm going to protect you from doing something that stupid. I'm giving you no money. And we bought the house, no money down, $300,000, secured by a first on that property with a $90,000 prepayment penalty for 15 years in a 20-year term. We're now 14 years into the deal. The gentleman, his wife is passed now. Gentleman is in his early 90s. Michael now goes every month and delivers the payment to his home. Why? Think how important the relationships are. That's why you recruit those allies. And this is a man who's been good to us. He gave us a great asset. And what's happening by his going there? We get to look in on him.
Sure.
Make sure he's okay. And we get to bond more over 16 years without ever missing a payment. And he's pretty happy. On Friday, Michael called. He says, I was over there and he said he's going to be moving in with his nephew. And he wants to sell the house he's moving out of, nice 4-bedroom, 2-bath house, to Michael for literally 60% of fair market value. And he knows that there's a discount. He because of the relationship. Somebody he likes, and he's gonna finance it.
Wow.
And you have no idea how hard it was for me to, I told you so. Shut my mouth. But that's what happens. The relationships you build are so important to making estate building easier and easier. When I bought my 4th property, I paid 50 grand, 10,000 down, 10,000 cash, and the seller carried 40. What was my problem?
You didn't have 10,000 like you.
I was only 10,000 light. What did I do?
Mom and dad.
No, I couldn't hit my mom and dad. What did I do? I borrowed 10 grand from the tenant in my second building. It's funny, with all the strains and all the things I've done, that's the story nobody believes. Nobody believes a tenant ever had 10 grand.
Right?
And no one believes a tenant and a landlord ever had that good relationship. Back then, in the middle 70s, the bank was going to charge me 9% to lend money. And they were paying my tenant 3%. How do I know what my tenant had?
You talked to him.
She filled out an application when she came to my house. And so I went over to see her. I said, can you imagine that bank? They want me to pay 9%. What if we cut the bank out of the deal and I paid you 9%? Why would I pay the same rate to a human being rather than to a bank?
Flexibility.
She's part of my tribe. She's paying for that house. Having her be more well-to-do strengthens my position. How many referrals do you think I got from her? In 1970 to 1980, I borrowed $75,000 from her. It was 10 and 15, but that's what happens. It's a relationship-based estate build. And so you go out, you recruit allies, you find out what's going on in their life. Sometimes you lease a property. Sometimes you option a property. Sometimes you make a loan. Sometimes you borrow money. You never know when you walk in what you're going to walk into. I went to look at a house a couple of years ago, and the lady had some health problems, and you can imagine what that did to her financial situation. She was back on her feet. She owned a house with a $48,000, 5% mortgage on it. But in the time she'd been out of work, she had run up $24,000 in credit card debt. One at 20%, the other at 29.9%. I had my IRA lend her $24,000, wrapping her 5%, paying off the $720 minimum payment credit cards and replacing it with a $45 payment to us and preserving her first mortgage. I thought I was going to buy the house when I got there, but I didn't need to take it away from her. I was able to get a terrific yield from my Roth IRA, which was tax-free, and I went in there not seeing that, not having any thought of that. So remember, don't be technique-driven. Find out how you can help. If you want to build an estate, remember, you earn value by providing value for others. That's what makes deals close. Thank you guys for
Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon at Invest Club.